This is, for the record, one of the most politically tense places in the world, but literally invited to go inside of the Al-Aqsa Mosque again. Right behind me is the Western Wall, the Kotel. Watch to the end, because even though this may be the last remnant of the Temple of Herod the Great from the time of Jesus Christ, we're going to go up and we're going to see what's actually on top of the Mount today itself. We're going to talk about significance of the Temple Mount from a traditionalist Roman Catholic standpoint. Watch the end and God bless. Welcome to the Harem Sharif, aka the Temple Mount. We got some tourists up here. It's actually way more chill than you would expect, and right now, as I'm filming this, it is both Lent, the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. Now, there are a lot of videos online talking about the site from a Muslim perspective, a Jewish perspective, and from a Protestant Christian perspective, but not many from a traditionalist Catholic perspective. So I thought I'd talk about the significance of the site from a traditional Catholic perspective. So right here we have, and you can still see some of the ruins from when the temple stood here. This would have been the southern entrance of the temple. This side of the mountain, a ton of stuff happened here. Like if you are a traditional Catholic Christian, this is a very important place you'd want to visit. It's right near where the Islamic Museum is. This is right around probably where the markets, I'm gonna guess where the market stalls would have been. So this is where Jesus would have drawn the money changers out of the temple. A great example for us that simply keeping etiquette is not an excuse to not stand up for what is right. Think about in our Novus Ordo parishes, how there's so much modernism going on. And we have to sometimes draw the money changers out of the temple and have righteous anger against people who are discrediting the traditional Catholic faith. This is also right around the place where the fifth joyful mystery of the Rosary took place. Probably right, it was actually on the steps on the old fold that leads up to here. Would have led up to here where Mary and Joseph would have found the child Jesus. And if I go a little over this way, past the Al-Aqsa Mosque, that's that big structure you see right there. Not a lot inside. It was actually, last time I was up here, I was invited to go inside by one of the Muslims to show the place around. I, of course, declined. If you're not Muslim, you're not allowed inside of the Al-Aqsa Mosque or the Dome of the Rock, which I think you can't really see it through the trees here. You can see a little glitter of the dome. Only Muslims are allowed inside there, and there's maybe a lot of tension here, but we as traditional Catholics, we 100% support the status quo of the holy sites in Jerusalem. We're pretty hardliners when it comes to respecting the status quo here. There was not there's the only place Catholic history this building really has is during the Crusader period. At the time this building would have been the royal palace of the Crusaders. This is the closest view you can probably get from inside. And I'm not going to push limits. Definitely not up here, but even if it was intense, like I know that I said sometimes you have to drive the money changers out of the temple. That being said, there's a time and a place for everything. Jesus sat down, thought about what he was doing, so it was not a passionate fit of anger that he drove the money changers out. He calmly sat down and he thought, I need to drive the point home that what is going on here is wrong. You should not turn the house of God into a market stall. So it's a great lesson about how we should behave in our traditional Catholic churches and houses of prayer, and how we should stand up against modernism. But anyway, one of the reasons I want to go right over this way is that's where the pinnacle of the temple would have stood in Jesus' time. Sorry about that. I was literally invited to go inside of the Al-Aqsa Mosque again. I had to explain a second time that I'm not allowed. So this is, for the record, one of the most politically tense places in the world. I've been held by so many people who are Jewish and Muslim, and I don't make a secret about who I am as a Catholic faithful to tradition. It's I've been helped by people who are religious, secular, Muslim, Jewish. So people are actually really kind and generous and giving here in my experience. So that's the mihrab. That's points the direction to Mecca. There are a lot of mihrabs out here. It is a mosque, technically. We're technically an outdoor mosque in many ways. Or at least a place of prayer for Muslims. So right here is where the pinnacle of the temple would have been. That is, how do we know that? Because underneath we found basically inscriptions from where they would have had a pinnacle here, where there would have been no shofars in Hebrew saying this is the pinnacle of the temple. So this is where it would have been. Why is that important to us as traditional Catholic Christians? This right here, this little corner here, exactly this corner, two important people were here. One is our Lord Jesus Christ, the other is Satan. This is the exact place where Satan told Jesus in the Gospels to jump off. God will protect you, for he will send his angels to guard you. Place of faith, temple would have been right over there. It would have been twice as tall as Dome of the Rock. And I'll see if I can get close to give you a sense of the height. Jesus, remember, being God, would have known. He wouldn't even have to send angels. He would have done it himself. Going through the air. Do not put God to the test. It is wrong to put God to the test. Now, why is that important? Why is it important for us as Christians? Why do we not put God to the test? We have faith in him? Because God calls us to use the order and means of salvation. Why did Jesus not put God to the test? Even though as Christians, we say he is God, and I believe that with every fiber of my being, with my whole heart and soul. Quite simple. It was kind of to undo what Adam did. Yeah, Christ's rejection of Satan was he was being Adam in reverse. Remember, in the letters of Paul, Jesus is referred to as the second Adam. So that's what would have happened over here. Right over this way, you have a more recent controversial event that happened here. So this is a construction of a Muslim prayer hall on the Dome of the Rock. Why would that be controversial? Theologically, not so much. Archaeologically, very much so. Remember, this is technically the Temple Mount is one of the most controversial archaeological sites on Earth, but it's also not an archaeological site. If that makes any sense. So they took a bunch of dirt here, plopped it, some of it in the Kidron Valley. I think some of it's up there, we'll see it in a little bit. But eventually some of it was taken and it's being sifted through as we speak, and they found a lot of seals of people who were mentioned by name in the Old Testament. I believe they found the signet ring of the high priest in the time of the prophet Jeremiah and other royal figures right around this area. So there's some sort of activity going on here in the time of the prophet Jeremiah. Now, I'm probably going to get some Protestants watching this too. And you're probably going to ask, where exactly was the temple? Here's the fun fact. And this is actually one of the reasons why if you come up here, you will see signs from the Rabbinate of Israel. Not the Muslim Warquif, but the Jewish rabbis saying it is forbidden to come up here if you're Jewish because we do not know exactly where the temple would have been. It is based on the writings of Flavius Josephus, and it's probably quite credible. We think it would have been right around where the Dome of the Rock stands. That's like common knowledge. Here's the problem with that. It is disputed. In fact, I've heard some scholars say that it might be right around in this area we're walking right now. It might be right around just outside of it, like where those trees are over there. I've heard alternate theories as to whether the rock underneath the Dome of the Rock is the site of the Holy of Holies where the Ark would have stood, or it would have been the altar. Which is it? Now here's the thing. It would be, if you're, and this is one of the many reasons why we as traditional Catholics are 100% against rebuilding the Jewish temple. Let's start with even practical implications. there's been so many, if you, let's say the Muslims say, okay, we don't want the Oscar Dome of the Rock anymore, let's give it to the Jewish people. Even then, archaeologically, it would be very difficult to find out where the temple once stood, because there were other sites on here. So let's say you tear it all down, dig down, and you find an altar. Unless there's something in stratigraphy that explicitly indicates that it was 100% dated to the time of Herod the Great, and things move up here. There's a lot of destruction here. How do you know if it's the altar of Herod the Great's temple? How do you know if it's the altar of Jupiter? Because there was on this mountain, during the Roman period, a pagan temple to Jupiter right up around here. So did they build it in the exact spot? Did they tear down the Jewish altar down to the foundations? We might not be able to know. And also, like, even just in practical terms, look at how huge this site is. It is massive. Yes? Sorry about that again. Someone was offered to sell me a picture of what it looks like inside the Dome of the Rock. You can find pictures like that online, so it's not the best deal. But yeah, we as traditional Catholics would be 100% against rebuilding the temple. For one reason, 2 Thessalonians, it says that the Antichrist will sit in the temple of God, and he will proclaim to the whole world that he is God. So, if you interpret this as being a literal physical Jewish temple, that means whoever rebuilds the Jewish temple will be the Antichrist. Not a person we as Catholic faithful tradition support. But yeah, even if they were allowed, there's a lot of debate as to how much archaeology is actually still beneath the surface. The earliest might be from Herod the Great's time, maybe, and how much of that was destroyed by the Romans, how much of that could be mistaken for the Romans, would be a subject of quite a bit of debate. But yeah, this site actually does have a lot of significance to us as traditional Catholics, because probably it was around here where the Temple of Solomon stood. That being said, the site of the temple, of the Jewish temple, does not have political significance to us. We do not want to rebuild it. We're literally against rebuilding it. That being said, typologically, we would say that the Temple Mount does have great theological significance, especially for our doctrines as traditional Catholic doctrines of Ecclesia Nalus Salus Est and our rejection of the ecumenical movement. So, in traditional Catholic theology, we would say, and the Church Fathers support this, we would say that the practice of only one true temple in Jewish law. That is why don't the Jews just build a temple in across the street where the Western Wall Plaza is now, since they have access to it. Why do they do that? Well, because God commanded somewhere up here. We're not 100% sure for the temple to be built, and that's where sacrifice is supposed to be made. And there were attempts, and we know for a fact, archaeologically, that in the days of the kings of Judah, it's mentioned in the Bible, in the Old Testament, that they were building illicit temples, kind of like how people today do take part in illicit worship that is Protestant or non-Catholic. So we would say that one true temple prefigures belief, our traditional Catholic belief, in there being only one true church and one true altar. So traditionally, again, we can't confirm this archaeologically, and even if we could dig down here, we might not be able to confirm it. We think that's where the temple was, that's where the altar was. Can't confirm it though. This is another important site right here, this side of the Temple Mount. This is the Golden Gate. So in Catholic tradition, on the other side of it, this is where Anna and Joachim would have met each other just before the conception of the Blessed Virgin Mary. And Our Lady was supposed to have loved this place, actually. Let's not forget that the Blessed Mother of God loved this site. This is also a site of two more important things right around here. So We're near the area where Solomon's portico would have been. You can see a lot of old stones on the ground. This is where Jesus, right around here, where Jesus would have spared the woman caught in adultery. Right around here. If you read the accounts of the gospel, this would have been the place, right around here. Significant, another piece of significance, this is also the place on this side. This is where Solomon's portico would have been. Look at maps, roughly the area. Right here, this side of the Temple Mount, overlooking the Kidron Valley. This is where, in John chapter 8, this is where Jesus was almost stoned. He says, Abraham longed to see this day, and he talks about how he'd seen Abraham. And he was asked, okay, how have you seen Abraham? You're just barely over 30. And then Jesus says something very significant. Quote, before Abraham was, I am. And they pick up stones, just like this stone right here. Possibly even this stone, theoretically, to stone him. Why did they stone him? I am is the meaning behind the Tetragrammaton, the personal, unpronounceable name of God. Jesus claimed divinity on this exact spot. And that is how we know the Arians are wrong. So there's a lot of events that happened right up here that we as traditional Catholics do recognize now. We are, as I said, we as traditional Catholics are perfectly fine with like not it, unless every Muslim in the world became a Catholic, traditional Catholic. We had pretty well zero interest in making it the Dome of the Rock, the Church of Templum Domini again. There's enough tension between Jews and Muslims, and I would say let them fight over it. And I'll say that in the sense that, like, I don't want to part in that fight. We have no interest in rebuilding it. We're fine with the status quo as Catholics. But it is something that's but we should read. But I don't wish ill on either of them. That being said, this is a beautiful place to just go and pray. Now, this is not how it would have looked in the time of Jesus. I assure you. We actually know that it was forbidden to have trees in the courts of the temple. Mind you, it's thought that in the days of David, I know Israel Finkelstein, he's kind of like a secular minimalist, but he himself thinks that the entire city of David, in the time of David, largely would have been up here. So this is not just the side of the temple, but the entire city of Jerusalem, essentially. And I think they have found like Neolithic things from the Temple Mount Sifting project. So this site has been inhabited, lived on, prayed on, worshipped on for generations. This is around the north side of the Temple Mount. And right over there, if you kept going, you would hit the Via Dolorosa. Over there would have been the Fortress Antonia, where Jesus would have been condemned to death. So Jesus would have been condemned to death at the foot of the Temple Mount. And that is really where our special story starts. I don't think that's the I don't think that's that entrance is open only to Muslims, as I recall, both in and out. There is a tourist exit, though. So this is, again, I'll mention some of the significance of the site, both Jews and Muslims. Again, we as traditional Catholics. I mentioned a bit about the significance of the site and its relevance for the doctrine of outside the church's no salvation and no ecumenism. Again, one true temple figured one true church, and there were so many church fathers support this opinion. I'll try to give some quotes down below. I've already paraphrased some of them from memory. But this is also where the Muslims, I think, Muhammad believe that Muhammad is in heaven from that dome. And the site of the furthest mosque, in their opinion, would have been the Al-Aqsa Mosque in their belief. Jews, of course, believe the Temple Mount, the whole world was created from here. But we as traditional Catholics, our interest in the site is what it prefigures. One true temple was mentioned in Leviticus. If it prefigures one true church, and there's so many church fathers, same in D30 statements, the church from ecumenical councils. Well, Vatican II said, well, Council of Florence was an ecumenical council too. How come apparently only Vatican II is infallible, according to these people? And they try to use invincible ignorance, and to the point of using legalism to annulling the law of God. But yeah, this is a very pretty site. Definitely worth coming, visiting. And this is also where Jesus said, weeping over Jerusalem, 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 you used to us prophets. How many times would we gather to gather you as a mother hen that gathered chicks under her wing, but you would not. So that is a verse that condemns Calvinism. But yeah, that's what this site is for us as Catholics, faithful tradition. It has great significance for us, even though it's not a church. We have no interest in making it a church. And as long as we give people breathing room here and follow the rules, it's actually a very quiet and peaceful place to just go and visit. Definitely worth it. And I'd recommend traditional Catholic groups add this site on their list on their list of sites they want to see when they visit Jerusalem. Anyway, finish off here. Anyway, God bless. Have a great day. If you ever get a chance in real life, please check out our Society of St. Pius X Church. So again, shout out to Society of St. Pius X for upholding these traditional Catholic doctrines of outside the Church's no salvation and rejection of ecumenism, both of which have been rejected by Vatican II. God bless. Have a great day.